Hey my friend, in this video I'm going to demonstrate 4 play styles that you can do with my new looper, the Aeros Loop Studio by Singular Sound. Those are the sync, serial, hybrid, and free play styles. Those are the 4 that I use the most to make my songs, and I'm sure you would love to learn how to do that with the pedal. If you're interested into getting the Aeros Loop Studio, you can do so by clicking on my affiliate link, first link in the description box, and entering code Antoine10 at checkout to get 10% off your order of the Aeros Loop Studio, and that would also support me and what I do on my channel, so it's a win-win situation. The first one I'm going to demonstrate is the sync play styles. That's the most classic one, where you record a first loop and then all the other loops you're going to record after that are going to be synchronized to the first loop and follow the same length. So I'm going to click on the left foot switch to start a new song. I'm just going to click on the pencil icon to look at some of the settings. So I'm going to choose the 6x6 mode for this one. So the more tracks that I get, the better it's going to be to play in sync mode. So this one, I'm going to get 6 loops at the same time. Then I'm going to choose start and length on the sync tracks. So that way, each new loop that I'm going to create is going to start at the beginning of the first one, right? Not in the middle of the loop. Then I'm going to choose auto quantize, so that way I don't even need to know what's the tempo or BPM of my song. It's going to create the grid automatically, which is really nice. And then the rest is pretty much okay. So I'm going to click save. And then it's pretty straightforward. I just need to click on the right switch to start recording the first loop. And that loop is going to dictate the beginning point of all the other loops after that. And all other loops can be the same length, multiples of the length, or fractions of the length. So let's say I have a chord progression like this. Record. And play. All right, so that's my first loop. I'm gonna lower the master volume just so that you can hear when I talk and I don't have to scream, right? So now that's the first loop, and all the other loops are gonna start at the beginning point of this one. So if I click on next track, it's going to be triggered to start at the beginning, so I can play. Right, so now you saw I played a fraction of the length of the loop. That was twice as short, but it's still synchronized to this one, right? I could play a next track once again and play a longer one, for example. So this one is twice as long. With little variations. So that's pretty much the basics of playing a sync mode, right? You just set it up like this and you record layer after layer and they're all going to be synced together, classic way. For the serial play style, we're going to play different song parts, for example, a verse and a chorus, and we're going to go from one to the other. So we can keep almost all the same settings than on the sync mode, but I'm just going to change one thing. I'm going to get rid of the quantization. So instead of auto quantize, I'm going to choose freeform. Why? Because sometimes when you go to a verse, from a verse to a chorus, you might change the tempo slightly, and that might mess with the timing of your loops and how they go from one to another. So that's why I prefer freeform, so that I don't play to a grid and I just feel it for myself. So then what I can do is just record a first part, which is going to be my verse, for example, like this. And play. So that is my verse. Instead of clicking on next track, I can go on next part. And now it's gonna trigger the next song part to be recorded at the end of the loop. Right? So now if I want to cycle through those, I can click on next part and I can record a third section of my song if I want, but I can click again and go back to the first section, which was my verse, right? And what is really cool with the Aeros is that you can actually have the serial and the sync mode at the same time. So usually on many loopers, you have to choose one or the other, and you can just add overdubs on top of your serial tracks. But now we can add really all other loops and layers on top of that. So let's say I'm gonna go to my chorus, and then on the chorus I can create different layers and different loops. So now I can click on next track, and now I can record a next track. I can create a little melody or something. So now it's not an overdub, it's a real new loop on top of that. And once again, I can decide to go back to the first one. So that's really, really cool to do that with the Aeros. Like I said, it's like serial and sync could be potentially played at the same time. You can create different song parts and different loops on each song part. The next one, I'm calling it the hybrid play style, because we're going to take a little bit of both worlds from the sync style and the serial style. We're going to create a loop that's going to stay on top of all song parts. It's going to be on top of the verse, of the chorus. It's going to be everywhere. On other loopers, we usually call that a master loop and slave loops. On the Aeros Loop Studio, we call that locked tracks. And I think it's really great because you can lock more than one track if you want. That's usually how I'm gonna make like my movie music covers and such. So let's say that I start with a first loop like this. Right? And then I can add a little percussion. Alright, so what I can do right now is that those two tracks, I can lock them in place. So if I hold the left switch right here, at the bottom of the menu, you have the option to lock a track. So if I select it, you You can now see that my first track has a square. It means that it is locked, right? So now what I can do is cycle through them to choose the second one, apply the same principle, lock a track, and now both of them are locked in place and are going to appear on all of my song parts. So what I can do is that for my first song part, I'm going to create a next track. You might recognize this song. Right, and then if I click on next part to create a new one, my lock tracks are gonna stay there. Nice, and then I can click on next part again to go back to my first part. Really, really nice. So I love that function, and if you thought that locking the tracks was a bit too long, what you could do, for example, if I start the song over again from the start, you can close that little menu right here, and you could decide to pre-lock the track before even starting the song, right? So I could decide to lock my first track right here, so it's already locked, and then you could add your other layers as overdubs on top of this one, and that would be a quicker way to do that when making a song in that style. And last but not least is the free play style, where nothing is going to be synchronized. You can have loops of multiple seconds that are going to overlap in different ways every single time. This is the preferred way of ambient guitar players who want to play soundscapes and improvise and get like something that's going to constantly evolve and not follow some kind of pulse or tempo. So the only thing we have to change in the settings is to turn the sync tracks off and to keep the song grid mode at freeform. So there won't be any synchronization, any quantization or anything. It's really free 100%. So now what you can do is to improvise with your ambient effects. For example, I'm going to add an octaver, lots of delays and reverbs, and play something like this. Record that. And then record other tracks. So you see the start points are totally random. They're not at the same place. I could add some drones, for example. Maybe a little percussion like I did on the last example. So you see all different starting points, and it's totally free. So that's something that the Aeros Loop Studio can do also. So there you go, the sync, the serial, the free mode, and the hybrid mode, all of that you can use. If you're interested, once again, into getting this pedal, you can do so with my first link in the description box and entering code Antoine10 at checkout to get 10% off on the pedal. That would support my channel once again, and that would mean the world to me, and you would get a super nice pedal at the same time for your looping needs. So thank you for watching, and until next time, au revoir.